There comes a time in every believer's life when questions become louder than answers. When the fog of uncertainty settles in, when prayers seem to rise but return without reply, when the soul cries out, "Lord, what do you want me to do?" And it is in those moments, not of chaos, but of calling, that God prepares to reveal His will. But let me tell you the truth, God does not show His will to the proud. He does not speak clearly to the self-centered or the half-committed. No, friend. God reveals His will to those who are completely surrendered, to those who have laid down their own will, to those who have stopped demanding and started kneeling, to those who have stopped saying, "Bless what I want to do," and have started saying, "Lord, have your way in me." You see, surrender is the soil where the seed of divine guidance grows. It's not found in the busy, in the ambitious, or the self-willed, but in the broken, the humble, the yielded. There are many who want to know God's will for their life, but they want to fit it into their own schedule. They want a word from God without changing their direction. They want the lamp without the fire. They want divine clarity without personal cost. But God is not a genie. He is God Almighty. He is not here to be consulted. He is here to be worshiped. His will is not a recommendation. His will is a holy command that flows from His perfect heart. So if He wants God to show you His will, the first step is not prayer, it is surrender. Let me ask you something today. Have you surrendered your life to God in a way that allows Him to redirect, reroute, and even ruin your plans if necessary? Have you said to the Lord, "Even if I don't like what you ask of me, I will still say yes"? Because until you reach that point of deep surrender, you are not yet ready to receive His divine instructions. God does not waste His voice on disobedient hearts. He looks for those who have given up the fight to control their own life and have laid their dreams, their timelines, their pride, their fears, and their desires on the altar. When Abraham placed Isaac on the altar, he wasn't just sacrificing a son. He was surrendering the very promise God had given him. And that is what complete surrender looks like. The willingness to lay down what even God has given you so you can receive what God truly wants for you. You want to know God's will? Don't chase signs, chase submission. Don't demand direction, develop devotion. Too many people say, "Lord, show me your will, and then I'll decide if I want to follow it." But the Lord responds, "No, surrender your life, and then I will show you." God's will is not a contract you review, it's a command you obey. And that command becomes clear only to those who say, "Yes, Lord," before they even know the assignment. Think of Saul of Tarsus. On the road to Damascus, this persecutor of Christians was thrown to the ground by a heavenly light. And what did he say? "Lord, what do you want me to do?" That was the question of surrender. And God answered him, not with a full roadmap, but with a first step. That's how God works. He gives direction one step at a time, not because He wants to hide things, but because He wants to teach you trust. But you will not take the first step if you haven't first surrendered your own way. So many Christians are frustrated, anxious, confused, not because God is silent, but because they are stubborn. They are trying to hear the voice of God through the noise of their own plans. They are not waiting on the Lord. They are negotiating with Him. They want His will, but only if it aligns with their dreams, their timing, and their comfort zone. But hear this, God's will often leads you away from comfort. It leads you into places that stretch your faith, that test your obedience, that strip away your pride. It is in those places of surrender that you discover what God has truly designed you for. You can't walk in God's will and hold on to your own will at the same time. One has to die, and the one that dies will determine the kind of life you live. Surrender is not weakness. Surrender is not giving up on life. Surrender is saying, "Lord, I trust you more than I trust myself." When Jesus knelt in the Garden of Gethsemane, sweating drops of blood, He made the most powerful prayer of surrender the world has ever heard. "Not my will, but yours be done." And it was in that moment that the greatest victory was won, not on the cross, but in the garden. Because the cross was just the result of surrender. The will of the Father was revealed to a Son who laid down His own. You may be asking today, why hasn't God spoken to me? Maybe the better question is, have I fully surrendered to Him? Because God's voice flows freely in the riverbed of surrender. It is there you'll find clarity. It is there you'll receive instructions. It is there you will understand why certain things had to fall apart, why some people had to leave, why some doors had to close. Surrender is not just a one-time decision, it is a daily lifestyle. Every day you must get up and say, Lord, not my will, not my plans, not my agenda, but yours be done. That's when the Spirit begins to move in your life like never before. Many people think they are waiting on God, but really God is waiting on them to surrender, to repent, to trust. God doesn't show His will to make you feel spiritual. He shows His will so you can walk in it. And the first key to walking in it is letting go of everything that competes with it. Let go of fear. Let go of timelines. Let go of needing to understand every detail. Let go of the desire to always be in control. You will never know the joy of divine direction until you've tasted the peace of full surrender. Some of you are praying, Lord, show me if I should take that job, move to that city, marry that person, step into that ministry. But what if the Lord is saying, first, show me if I truly have all of you? Before God reveals His will to you, He wants to do a work in you. It's not about the next decision, it's about the next dimension. Surrender doesn't just unlock answers, it unlocks transformation. Because God is more interested in who you are becoming than where you are going. So, I urge you today, stop striving, stop resisting, stop clinging to what is fading, lay it all down. Your dreams, your fears, your pain, your pride, your past, your future. Say to the Lord, here I am yours. Use me, break me, lead me. I don't need to know where I'm going as long as I know you are leading. That is the posture that heaven responds to. That is the moment when the heavens part, when clarity comes, when direction flows like a river, when peace replaces panic. And when God sees a surrendered heart, He does not hesitate. He begins to guide. He begins to orchestrate. He begins to illuminate your steps. He may not show you the whole path, but He will always show you the next step. He may not give you every answer, but He will give you the grace to keep going. And as you walk in surrender, you will walk in revelation, because God reveals His will to those who are willing to lay down theirs. So today, if you are searching for direction, stop looking around and start looking up. Get low before God. Lay your life before Him, not as a negotiation, but as an offering. And in due time, the Lord will speak. The Lord will guide. The Lord will whisper into your spirit what no man could ever tell you. So many today lived restless lives, not because God has abandoned them, but because they have not fully yielded to Him. They seek clarity without commitment, revelation without repentance, direction without devotion. But hear this with all the urgency of eternity: God does not pour His will into divided vessels. He is not a God of confusion, He is a God of covenant. And a covenant demands all of you, not some of you, not just Sunday morning you, all of you. The part people see and the parts you've hidden, the strong parts and the broken ones, the joyful and the ashamed, all of it. A fool? You say you want to know God's plan, but would you still want it if it cost you comfort? Would you still want it if it meant you had to let go of people you love? Would you still want it if it stripped you of your platform, your pride, your possessions? Because God's will is not about fitting into the life you designed. It is about stepping into the life He designed. Before the foundation of the world, when He knit you together in secret, when He wrote every one of your days in His book, before one of them came to be. Some of you are holding on to your version of life with such a tight grip that God cannot place His will into your hands. You're full of ambition, but empty of peace. You're surrounded by people, but alone in your soul. You're busy with goals, but bankrupt in your spirit. Because you have not yet said, God, take it all. Take my ambition, take my goals, take my understanding, take my desire to be seen, take my desire to be in control, take my fears, take my future. And when you finally say those words and mean them, that's when things begin to shift. That's when God begins to move pieces in the invisible realm that no man can stop. That's when the peace that passes all understanding floods into your heart like a river. That's when the voice of the Lord becomes louder than the noise of the world. That's when direction becomes a daily experience, not because you know everything, but because you know the one who does. People think the will of God is some distant mystery, some clouded fog, some unreachable destination, but it is not. It is right where you are, waiting to be revealed the moment you let go of your will, because the more of you that dies, the more of Him can live in you. And when He lives in you, you no longer need to beg for clarity. You just walk in communion. You no longer chase signs. You carry His Spirit. You no longer ask, what if this goes wrong? Because you know that the God who rules the galaxies has ordered your steps. That's what it means to live surrendered. That's what it means to walk in divine will. It's not a map. It's not a checklist. It's not a perfect plan where nothing ever goes wrong. It's a relationship with the Almighty where even in the fire, even in the storm, even in the delay, even in the silence, you trust Him. You trust Him when you can't trace Him. You trust Him when you feel abandoned. You trust Him when everything familiar is taken away, because your faith is not in outcomes, it's in the one who holds all outcomes in His hand. You want to hear from God? Then quiet the other voices, turn off the noise, mute the world, stop running to people for answers only God can give, stop asking social media for direction, stop consulting opinions and start bowing in prayer. The will of God is not revealed in the chaos, it is revealed in the secret place, in the stillness, in the sacred silence, in the place where no one else is looking, but heaven is watching. Too many believers live reactive lives. They jump from crisis to crisis, always asking, Lord, what should I do now? But those who walk in surrender live proactive lives because they've already said yes to whatever God has planned. Their hearts are prepared, their spirits are positioned, their ears are tuned. They may not know the details, but they know the voice. They may not understand the season, but they understand the sovereignty. And let me tell you something powerful. When you surrender completely to God, you become dangerous to the kingdom of darkness. Because now you are a vessel that cannot be bought, a voice that cannot be silenced, a soldier who cannot be swayed by pressure or fear. You are no longer controlled by results, you are controlled by revelation. And that kind of life is unstoppable. That kind of life is fruitful. That kind of life is what God blesses. Do not think for a moment that surrender is weak. No, surrender is the birthplace of spiritual strength. It is where you trade your weakness for His might. It is where you lay down your sword and pick up His armor. It is where you finally realize that you were never meant to carry the weight of your own destiny. You are not the author of your life. You are not the master of your fate. You are the servant of the Most High God, and servants do not question the will of the King. They follow it, not out of fear, but out of love, not out of obligation, but out of adoration. Because once you've tasted the goodness of God, once you've seen what He can do with a surrendered life, you never want to go back. You never want to live on your own terms again. Some of you are one surrender away from breakthrough, one surrender away from peace, one surrender away from clarity, one surrender away from walking into the divine purpose God wrote for you before time began. But as long as you keep one hand on the wheel, as long as you keep one foot in the world, as long as you keep one eye on your backup plan, you'll stay stuck. God will not bless your plan, He will bless His. And the only way to step into His is to step out of yours. You've got to die to your timeline. You've got to die to your image. You've got to die to the need to be understood by everyone. You've got to die to the lie that you can figure this out on your own. And when you do, when you finally say, God, I trust you, even if it doesn't make sense, even if it costs me everything, even if it hurts, I trust you, that's when the heavens open. That's when purpose floods in like sunlight through the clouds. That's when you realize that you were never meant to live for the applause of man or the approval of this world. You were meant to live for the glory of the King. And the King reveals His will to those who kneel. There's no formula for hearing the voice of God, but there is a posture of surrender, a posture of humility, a posture of faith. And when your heart is in that posture, God will speak, maybe not through thunder, maybe not through lightning, maybe not through dreams or visions, maybe not through dramatic moments, but He will speak through the Word, through the Spirit, through the quiet conviction, through the gentle whisper in your soul that says, "This is the way, walk in it." And when you follow that whisper, you will find yourself exactly where you were meant to be, not because you were perfect, but because you were surrendered. And that, dear friend, is the secret of those who walk in God's will. Not that they were smarter, not that they were more talented, not that they had more resources, but that they laid everything down at the feet of Jesus and said, "I'm yours, lead me." And when He leads you, it's never in vain. It may not look the way you imagined. It may not come wrapped in comfort or convenience, but every step He ordains is saturated with purpose. There's not a moment wasted when you walk under the hand of God. Even detours become divine. Even delays become development. Even closed doors become redirection. The surrendered life walks in the assurance that nothing is accidental under the authority of the Almighty. Some of you are frustrated, not because God is silent, but because you're listening for the wrong voice. You're waiting for Him to speak to your flesh, but He speaks to your spirit. You're waiting for Him to confirm your desires, but He's calling you to crucify them. The will of God isn't found in the path of least resistance. It's found in the place of greatest obedience. If you're still chasing ease, you're not yet surrendered. If you're still clinging to predictability, you're not yet surrendered. And if you're still negotiating the terms, you're not yet surrendered. You cannot discover the will of God while sitting on the throne of your own heart. Oh, how many people ask for God's will with their lips but reject it with their lives. They say, "Lord, guide me," while charting their own course. They pray, "Lord, lead me," while dragging their idols into tomorrow. And then they wonder why things fall apart. They wonder why doors slam shut. They wonder why peace escapes them. It's because the Lord, in His mercy, will not let you flourish in your own rebellion. He loves you too much to bless your self-made kingdom. God's will is not about your comfort, it's about your calling. It's not about your plan, it's about His purpose. And His purpose always leads you to the cross before it leads you to the crown. He will strip away what's superficial so He can strengthen what's eternal. He will remove the distraction so He can reveal the divine. He will confront the imposter self so that the true you, called, chosen, redeemed, can rise up and walk in destiny. We said we want to be used by God. But being used means being broken first. It means being poured out. It means being refined by fire and tested in secret. It means being misunderstood, overlooked, even rejected. Because God is not interested in popularity, He is interested in purity, and He will not entrust divine assignments to those who refuse divine alignment. You ask God, "What's your will for my life?" But maybe the better question is, "God, what is your will, and how can I align my life with it?" That's the posture of surrender. That's the posture that unlocks supernatural clarity. Because when you stop treating God like a consultant and start treating Him like King, you don't just get answers, you get transformation. Some of you are in a place right now where nothing makes sense. The dreams are fading, the doors are closing, the people are walking away, and you're wondering, "God, what are you doing?" But hear me, confusion does not mean God is absent. Often it means He is shifting. He is rearranging the furniture of your life to prepare you for what He has already ordained. And sometimes the dismantling of your plan is the very evidence of God's presence. The enemy wants you to believe that the silence means God is gone, but God is not gone. He's getting you ready. Ready for the weight of His will. Ready for the glory you don't see coming. Ready for the responsibility of favor. Because favor isn't fun and games. Favor is stewardship. Favor requires pruning. Favor demands character. And until God sees that you're ready to carry the weight of His plan without crushing under pride, He will keep you hidden. And don't despise the hidden seasons. Don't curse the quiet places. That's where roots grow deep. That's where character is forged. That's where the noise of ego dies and the whisper of heaven becomes clear. That's where you stop performing and start becoming. That's where you stop hustling and start hearing. Some of you are in the hallway between where you were and where God is taking you, and you're tempted to run back to what's familiar, but the hallway is holy. It's the in-between that God uses to shape the vessel. Stay in the process. Don't abort the mission because it's uncomfortable. Don't sabotage your future because the present feels uncertain. Your God is not confused. His plan is still intact. His hand is still on you. You say, "But I don't feel anything." Since when did faith depend on feelings? The will of God is not discovered by goosebumps or emotional highs. It's discovered through persistence in prayer, obedience in action, and trust in the valley. Some of the most pivotal moments of divine direction come not when you're full of faith, but when you're clinging to it by a thread. God doesn't need your strength to show His will. He just needs your surrender. You don't have to be perfect to walk in His will, but you do have to be available. You do have to be willing. You do have to say, "Here I am, Lord, send me, break me, use me, lead me." That's when the floodgates open. That's when divine appointments align. That's when unexpected doors swing wide and divine connections show up out of nowhere. And don't think for a second that you're too late. Don't think your mistakes have canceled your mission. Don't think your detours have destroyed your destiny. You serve a God who redeems time, a God who restores years, the locusts of Eden, a God who turns your failure into fuel and your weakness into witness. He's not looking for perfect people. He's looking for surrendered vessels. And if He finds that in you, there is no limit to what He can do through you. The enemy is terrified of a believer who is fully yielded, because once you lay your will at the altar, you become untouchable. You become a threat to every scheme of hell. You become the kind of person who shifts atmospheres just by showing up. You walk into rooms not looking for approval, but bringing authority, not because of who you are, but because of who He is in you. And once you've tasted that kind of life, you don't want anything else. Once you've walked in sync with the Spirit, no counterfeit can satisfy. Once you've heard the voice of God, no praise from man can compete. Once you've seen God's hand move in response to obedience, you'll never again settle for a life of compromise. So stop looking backward. Stop trying to make sense of everything. Stop delaying your surrender because of uncertainty. Trust the one who knows the end from the beginning. Trust the one who writes your story better than you ever could. Trust the one who formed you, called you, redeemed you. Your yes today may be the key that unlocks generations of impact. Your surrender today may open doors your grandchildren will walk through. Your obedience today may be the reason someone else meets Jesus tomorrow. God's will is bigger than your moment. It echoes into eternity. And when it's all said and done, when the spotlight fades, when the stage is empty, when the noise is gone, the only thing that will matter is this: did you follow His will? Did you lay it all down? Did you trust Him completely? That is the question heaven asks. That is the legacy that counts. And that is the life worth living. When God begins to move in your life, it may not look like movement to the natural eye. It may look like subtraction. It may feel like isolation. You may find yourself walking through valleys you never volunteered for, shedding layers you never planned to lose. But child of God, hear me now. The will of God will never leave you the same. You cannot remain who you were and step into what He has prepared. The call of God is a call to transformation. It is a death to the old self and a rising to the new. It is a stripping away of pride, ego, self-sufficiency, until Christ alone is your source. Some of you are standing in the middle of spiritual surgery. God is cutting away relationships that can't go where He's taking you. He's removing comforts that kept you spiritually stagnant. He's shaking foundations you once leaned on so you'll learn to lean solely on Him. And you're asking, why is this happening to me? But heaven is answering, because I love you too much to leave you unprepared for the assignment ahead. We want the crown, but we forget there's always a cross before it. We want the anointing, but we forget the oil only flows when the olive is crushed. We want the glory, but we forget that glory only rests where the flesh has been surrendered. God's will is not about making your life easy. It's about making your life holy. It's about molding you into a vessel that carries His presence with reverence, not with arrogance. As well as not a shortcut to success, it's a journey of sanctification. So don't misinterpret the silence. Don't curse the difficulty. Don't mistake pruning for punishment. God is not being cruel. He is being careful. He is shaping you with eternal vision. He sees what you cannot. He knows what lies ahead. And if you could see what He's protecting you from, what He's preparing you for, and what He's positioning you into, you would praise Him in the storm instead of questioning His goodness. You would shout in the fire instead of asking Him to remove it. There are places in God's will that you will only reach through pain. There are levels of authority you will only access through obedience. And there are blessings you will only unlock through brokenness. This is why the enemy wants you to tap out during the trial. He knows the trial is your training. He knows the pressure is preparing you. He knows that when you finally surrender and walk in step with God's will, hell has no strategy to stop you. You see, God's will is not a destination. It's not a single moment. It's not a spotlight or a platform or a title. It's a lifestyle. It's the consistent daily choice to say, not my will, but yours be done. It's following when it doesn't make sense. It's obeying when no one claps. It's trusting when the promise seems far off, and it's worshiping when the tears won't stop falling. That's where God reveals himself. That's where the power of the Spirit flows, not in the shallow places of comfort, but in the deep waters of trust. And let me tell you something that may shock you. God will offend your mind to reveal your heart. He will lead you in ways that challenge your logic. He will ask you to forgive when it hurts, to give when it feels empty, to stay when it's easier to leave, to go when the path isn't clear. Why? Because he is not raising spiritual tourists, he's raising disciples. He's not building kingdoms of convenience, he's building lives that reflect his glory. God's will is not found in the echo of the crowd, but in the stillness of his voice. And his voice isn't always loud. Sometimes it's a whisper in the dark. Sometimes it's a peace in the middle of chaos. Sometimes it's a closed door that forces you to pivot. But it's always faithful, it's always intentional, it's always redemptive. And if you'll follow that voice, if you'll tune your spirit to it, he will take you to places you never imagined, use you in ways you never expected, and reveal himself to you in dimensions you've never known. Some of you have been praying, God, speak to me, and he's saying, I already have. Open my word. Obey my last instruction. Trust me in the silence. The will of God is not something you chase like a shadow. It's something you discern as you walk in intimacy with him. The closer you draw to Jesus, the clearer the path becomes. Because the will of God isn't about what you do, it's about who you become. It's about walking so closely with him that his desires become your desires, his priorities become your priorities, and his heart becomes your heart. Oh, how many have missed the will of God because they were too busy asking for signs and ignoring Scripture, too busy chasing destiny and neglecting discipline, too focused on external confirmations and not enough on internal conviction. God's will doesn't always come with flashing lights. It often comes with quiet nudges, consistent peace, and divine discomfort when you try to go your own way. You are not born to live by trial and error. You are not created to wander aimlessly, guessing your way through life. You are designed to walk in divine order. And when you yield to that order, there is rest, there is clarity, there is provision, there is protection, but make no mistake, God's will cost you. It will cost your pride, it will cost your plans, it will cost your timelines, your reputation, your need to be in control. But what you gain in return cannot be measured in earthly terms. You gain peace that surpasses understanding. You gain strength that outlasts storms. You gain favor that no man can manufacture. And most of all, you gain intimacy with the one who holds it all. So I challenge you, lay it all down. Every agenda, every fear, every backup plan. Stop bargaining and start believing. Stop resisting and start responding. God's will is not just a better plan. It is the only plan that leads to life, joy, and eternal impact. And yet, even as I speak to you now, I know there are hearts wrestling in this very moment. Not with what I'm saying, but with what the Spirit is convicting. There are those who hear these words and feel the tension deep within their soul. The tug of war between what you've built and what God is breaking down, between what you've planned and what God is asking. And I want to say to you with fire in my bones, stop resisting the hand of the Lord. For every time you fight his will, you delay the blessing that was already on its way. You don't need more signs, more confirmations, or more opinions from people who cannot see what God has revealed to you in private. What you need is courage, holy courage. Not the courage of men, but the courage born from time in the presence of the Almighty. That's what sets you apart. That's what strengthens your spine when the world tries to bend you. That's what silences the doubts when the voices get loud. It's not about being fearless. It's about fearing God more than you fear man. Too many of us are standing at the edge of the Jordan, still asking God to part the waters before we move, while God is waiting for our feet to step in first. Faith is not waiting until the way is clear. Faith is stepping when the way isn't clear and trusting that God will make a way where there is no way. That's the path of obedience. That's the path of surrender. That's the narrow road that leads to the fullness of His will. And let me speak this plainly. You will not always be applauded for following God's will. In fact, the moment you begin to obey Him without compromise, you may start losing people who only love the version of you that catered to their comfort. You may find yourself misunderstood, ridiculed, pushed aside. But child of God, hear this. Obedience is not for the crowd, it's for the King. You don't need permission from people when you already have direction from heaven. God's will doesn't bow to popularity. It doesn't bend to culture. It doesn't wait for consensus. When He speaks, the only correct response is, "Yes, Lord," even when it's inconvenient, even when it's uncomfortable, even when it doesn't come with a map. Because the safest place on earth is not in a padded bank account, not in a comfortable routine, not in a prestigious title, but in the center of God's will. And if you've ever tasted that place, if you've ever walked in divine alignment where your spirit is at rest and your steps are ordered, you know there's nothing that compares. You could be in a desert and still overflow with joy. You could have nothing in the bank and still feel rich in peace, because God doesn't bless based on your surrender. The reason some of you feel like you're stuck is not because God has forgotten you, it's because you're still trying to drag your will into His. You're still negotiating with heaven while holding tight to the idols of control, comfort, and convenience. But God is too holy to bless your rebellion. He is too loving to endorse your compromise. And He is too faithful to let you settle for anything less than His perfect will. You say, but it's hard. Yes, it's hard, but hardness doesn't mean absence. In fact, some of the clearest evidence of God's presence is not the ease of the journey, but the strength He gives you to keep going when everything in you wants to quit. The will of God will demand everything, but it will give you more than you ever imagined. It will cost you, but it will crown you. It will break you, but it will also build you. Some of you need to stop praying for a new word and start obeying the last word. God is not obligated to give you step 2 if you've ignored step 1. He won't speak just to satisfy your curiosity. He speaks to mobilize your obedience. You don't get to see the whole picture, because faith means trusting the artist while he paints with strokes that don't make sense to you. The will of God is not always understood in the moment, but it's always vindicated in the end. When Joseph was thrown into a pit, lied about in Potiphar's house, and forgotten in prison, the will of God still held him. When Moses was sent back to the land he fled with nothing but a staff and a stutter, the will of God still guided him. When Esther stood trembling before a king who could kill her for speaking, the will of God still empowered her. And when Jesus knelt in Gethsemane, sweating blood, crying out, "Not my will, but yours be done," the will of God still triumphed over death itself. So what excuse do you have? What fear is too big for the God who splits seas? What anxiety is too complex for the one who counts the hairs on your head? What enemy is too strong for the one who already crushed the serpent's head? There is nothing, I say again, nothing that can stop a surrendered vessel in the hands of a sovereign God. You think you're too weak? Good. His strength is made perfect in weakness. You think you're too broken? Good. A broken spirit and a contrite heart God will not despise. You think you've failed too many times? His mercies are new every morning. What matters is not where you've been, it's what you're willing to surrender right now. Heaven is not looking for perfect vessels, it's looking for available ones. Stop living for what you think you've missed and start living for what God can still do. His will is not limited by your past, it is activated by your obedience in the present. And the moment you say yes, not a halfway yes, not a conditional yes, but a full-throated, spirit-filled, tear-stained yes, that is the moment heaven begins to move. That is the moment things begin to shift. That is the moment destiny begins to align. Don't you dare settle for a version of life that lacks the fire of His presence. Don't you dare let fear rob you of the favor that comes with obedience. Don't you dare waste another year circling the same mountain when God is calling you into the promised land. This is your moment. This is your call to rise, to believe again, to obey again, to say, Lord, not my dreams, not my plans, not my desires, but your will be done. And as surely as He is God, He will show you His will, but not just to inform you. He will show you His will to transform you, to mature you, to mark you, to set you apart for something that goes beyond comfort and enters the territory of calling. You were not created to simply exist. You were made to walk in the fire of His presence and carry the weight of His glory. Will you respond? Will you trust Him when the path makes no sense? Will you lay down what's familiar for what's eternal? Because His will is not just what He does for you, it's what He does in you, and what He does through you, and what He does despite you. That is the power of surrender. That is the power of obedience. That is the power of saying yes to the one who already knows the end from the beginning. And He is waiting for the moment when your heart says, I'm ready. Because when you say, I'm ready, heaven takes notice. The angels lean in. The demons tremble. The very atmosphere around your life begins to shift. You may not see it with your eyes yet, but something stirs in the unseen realm. For every act of obedience unlocks a chain reaction in the spirit, and the will of God, once just a whisper in your soul, begins to roar like a mighty rushing wind, guiding your feet where your heart once feared to go. You see, the will of God is not for the faint-hearted. It is not a path for those who want to play it safe or live in the shallow end of faith. No. The will of God will call you to the deep. It will call you to waters that will rise above your head, not to drown you, but to teach you how to walk by faith, not by sight, to teach you to depend on the voice of the shepherd rather than the opinions of the crowd, to teach you that real power is not in controlling outcomes, but in trusting the one who controls the universe. And I feel compelled to tell someone this. Obedience will always look foolish to those who don't hear what you hear. When Noah built the ark, they mocked him. When Abraham left everything familiar to follow a voice, they questioned him. When David stood before a giant with a sling, they laughed at him. But what the world called foolish, God called faithful. And the will of God often shows up wrapped in things the world would never choose, because the foolishness of God is wiser than the wisdom of man. So let them laugh. Let them doubt. Let them question your motives and mock your journey. You are not called to explain yourself to those who refuse to seek Him. You are called to move with the cloud. You are called to follow the fire. You are called to walk in such holy confidence that when the world says, that's crazy, your soul says, but God said it. Because once you've heard God's voice, every other voice starts to lose its grip. Once you've felt His presence, you're ruined for the ordinary. Once you've tasted His will, you no longer crave the empty comforts of compromise. There's a fire in your bones, a holy ache in your spirit, and a divine urgency in your soul. You can't go back. You won't go back. You are a marked one, called, separated, sent. The will of God will not just affect your destiny. It will affect everything around you. Your relationships will change, your values will shift, your appetites will be altered. What once entertained you will now grieve you. What once distracted you will now disgust you. You will find yourself drawn to things eternal and repelled by things temporary. That is the mark of someone who has truly surrendered. So I say to you now, with the full weight of conviction and the fire of the Spirit burning in my bones, surrender, not halfway, not with conditions. Lay it all at His feet. Let the cry of your heart be, Thy will be done, Lord, not just in heaven, but in my life, in my choices, in my future, in my weakness, in my waiting, in my battles. Because when you truly surrender to His will, you are no longer living an ordinary life, you are living a supernatural one. You are no longer just surviving, you are walking in divine purpose. And though the road may be narrow and the cost may be great, the reward is eternal. The world may not understand you, but heaven will recognize you, hell will fear you, and your life will echo through eternity as a testimony that God still speaks, God still leads, and yes, God will show you His will. Let that be your legacy.